You're wrong. The dress was obviously white. Maybe you can help me settle this argument with R210 over here. He, like so many other people, think that that dress that was all over the place a couple of years ago is actually blue, when we all know that it's white. No, not that dress. Yes, that dress. Welcome to Teacup For One. My name is Matt, and I have 2 degrees. And today we're going to discuss why so many people think the iconic dress in Walt Disney's 12th animated feature production Cinderella is blue, when in fact, it's not. It's white. Well, actually it's silver. Sort of. I'm not going to pretend the dress hasn't been marketed as blue for the past 70 years with Funkos, movie covers, vinyl records, books, Color Brains, Wreck-It Ralph 2, even in the theme parks. And the misconception that the dress is blue is just a byproduct of how genius the animation is in the original film. Let me explain. Now, when the dress first appears on screen, it's white. Well, more specifically, it's silver. Then, as the dress goes to the ball and dances with the prince, it gradually morphs into the now characteristic, infamous blue color we're all familiar with. See, just look at it side by side, from its first appearance to its last appearance. You're probably looking at it and thinking, how did I never notice that? Well, as someone who got a B+ in Cinematography 1, let me repeat the words to you that my professors spoke to me. Please, let me teach you. First, we have to look at color temperature. You all know what color temperature is, even though you might not know you know it. If you've ever recognized the difference between a light bulb like this one in my IKEA lamp and the light on your cell phone, then you have witnessed the difference in color temperature. Look, light bulb, cell phone light. 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 Some lights have a warmer color, like from a light bulb, whereas other lights have a cooler color, like from an LED light on your cell phone. The way we measure the quality of a color coming off of a light source is in degrees Kelvin. So yes, it's measured by temperature. That's why we call it color temperature. But why? If you had a black body radiator and you started applying heat to it, once this black body radiator hit a certain temperature, it would turn from black into red. As it gets hotter and hotter, this black body would start to turn into other colors, but going through an entire spectrum from red at the coolest to white at its absolute hottest. And this is the system by which we measure color or color temperature. Admittedly, it's a bit backwards because your warmer colors like your reds, oranges, and yellows come from a cooler color temperature, but then your cooler colors like whites and blues come from a hot color temperature at the other end of the spectrum. But don't worry, that doesn't mean that your cell phone light is so hot that it's comparable to a white hot star and it's going to burn you. This is just a system used to measure and compare the quality of color coming from any given light source. Now you're probably asking, Matt, what does this have to do with Cinderella? Way back when films were still being shot on film, you had 2 options for lighting, the sun or the ton, also known as tungsten, also known as incandescent light bulbs. Is this an incandescent light bulb? It's a light bulb. These 2 light sources are on polar opposite sides of the spectrum. Tungsten lights are on the lower end of the color temperature spectrum, and they'll typically emit a color temperature of around 3000 kelvins, which equates to a much warmer quality of light. Whereas the color temperature of daylight is closer to 6500 degrees Kelvin, and so the quality of light coming off of that is closer to a blue tone. So, when you apply that to the world of filmmaking, you either have tungsten light with a warmer color temperature, or daylight with a cooler temperature, and then the actual physical film, which is caught right down in the middle, and it can't be all things to all people. So what's the solution? Daylight balanced film versus tungsten balanced film. So if you're shooting with a tungsten balanced film, it's going to make tungsten light look white instead of red. If you're shooting with a daylight film, it's going to make daylight look white instead of blue. But what happens if you're shooting daylight with tungsten film, or if you're shooting tungsten light with daylight balanced film? The same thing that happens on any good soap opera. The 2 expose each other for their true colors. To see what I mean, let's take a look at this clip from a film I made in my second year at York called The Myth of Persephone. This was shot on tungsten balanced film, except one of our main locations had an entire wall's worth of windows. So if you just look at this clip, you'll notice the difference between how the character in the foreground is lit versus the characters in the background. The characters in the background have a bluish tint to their white uniforms because they are being lit by the sun on tungsten balanced film. It's similar with white balancing when you're working with photography or with video. For example, right now, everything in this shot is white balanced to my white shirt. But what happens if I white balance to this red curtain behind me? I'm a beautiful princess. Obviously, this is an extreme example because that curtain was never going to pass for white, but it's a great demonstration about how color temperature and white balancing affects how the camera sees colors versus how we see and understand color. You're all smart people. You know that this shirt is white, but what you're seeing on screen is blue. But you understand it to be white. That sounds familiar. So let me paint a picture for you. Now just imagine for a second that the ballroom scene in Cinderella is being shot on film instead of animated. The main lighting source inside the ball is candlelight, which has a very low color temperature. So it's being shot on a film that is balanced to make red light look white. That's why everything within the confines of the ball looks white, such as the prince's jacket. Once Cinderella enters the ball and she starts dancing with the prince, their dance takes them from the interior location of the castle to the exterior, where they are lit by the moon. And what provides light to the moon? The sun. And what happens when you film daylight with tungsten balanced film? It exposes the daylight for its true color, beautiful, cool, blue. So to answer your question, why didn't I notice the dress change from silver to white? It's because the animation in this movie mirrors the rules and the behaviors that come with shooting on film in live action in ways that your brain has seen a million times and you're subconsciously accustomed to accepting. So yes, technically speaking, there was a point in the animation process when the animators would have shelved the white/silver paint and then whipped out the blue paint and started painting the dress blue. But it's not because the dress was meant to be blue. It's because the dress being blue was part of a much bigger artistic vision for this scene. That's just a testament to how beautifully animated Cinderella is. Alright folks, that concludes today's episode of Teacup for One. Let me know what you thought in the comments down below. Did I change your mind? Did I convince you? Or do you believe that her dress always was and always will be blue? And if you'd like to hear me ramble on even more about Cinderella, click on the video over there, and then that will take you to my comprehensive review of Cinderella through cinematic history. Buckle in. Thanks for joining us, everyone. Until next time, Matt out. Go away.